Hello, guys. Happy Sunday. Welcome to yet another edition of Dirty Leather. I'm here once again, as always, with my co host, Doug and Jesse. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing all right. A
Doing good.
bit nervous, but doing pretty well.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a big night for you out there in Toronto, Doug. All right, so I think we've got a pretty packed house tonight about a lot of stuff to talk about, so we'll get right into it. We'll start off with our weekly rant. I don't know if either of you guys want to go first, have something ready to go, but Jesse, why don't you kick us off today?
Sure, yes, I would be more than happy to start off this episode. This my weekly rant again focuses on the Yankees. And it's about one of their main offseason decisions, or what could be a main offseason decision. Now, as you know, Munetaka Murakami, the Japanese third baseman, will be posted this winter to come play in Major League Baseball. Now, if you're not familiar with Munetaka Murakami, in 2022, he set the Japanese single season record for most home runs in a single season. Excuse me, and it's been a long time coming. A lot of fans have been waiting for him to be posted. Now that he is able to do so, he will be posted. And he will be seeking a very large contract in Major League Baseball. Now, a lot of news sources, especially Mark Feinsand, has reported that the Yankees will make a play for Munetaka Murakami to be the third baseman going forward. Now, the question is, should the Yankees get Munetaka Murakami? And of course, I would love Munetaka Murakami. He's a left-handed hitter, big power hitter, and it's Yankee Stadium. So when you have a big power hitter, left-handed hitter in Yankee Stadium with the short porch, it's always a plus. But there's a big problem with the Yankees. The question is, who do you shift around and who do you move essentially to fit Munetaka Murakami? That's the question, because there's a couple of issues here. Number one, you just traded for Ryan McMahon, who is a great defensive third baseman, and that is an issue that the Yankees have had for several years as defensive third base. Yes, they had Gio Urshela a couple of years ago, 2019, 2020. They had Josh Donaldson, who was a decent third baseman in his tenure with the Yankees, even though he was hitting the twilight of his career. But at the same time, you did have some not so good players. You had a mix of DJ LeMahieu, you had a mix of Oswald Peraza, Oswaldo Cabrera. Now you finally have somebody at third base who can play that defensive aspect. Is McMahon a good hitter? Yes, he is. The question is, can he get the strikeout numbers down? Because he does have an issue with striking out a lot. So Murakami obviously negates that problem. But the problem with that is how do you essentially fit him in? Do you send Ryan McMahon, to shortstop if you want to throw away Anthony Volpe? Do you put Murakami at first base? But then there's another question with first base. Do you get rid of Ben Rice? Do you get rid of Giancarlo Stanton perhaps for designated hitter? There's a lot of issues here with the Yankee roster construction that prevents Munetaka Murakami from coming over to the Yankees. He did have an injury-plagued season as well, so that's something to take into account. And he did have a regression in 2023 and 2024 after his very, very strong outing. That's the issue. Now, he did rebound in 2025, but like I said, he had an injury-plagued season. His numbers did go up. His power did go up. But he did have a drop in walk rate, and he had an increase in strikeout rate. So that's a question you also have to consider. Do you want to send away Ryan McMahon, who is a strikeout machine, and bring in Murakami, who is also having issues with strikeouts now, but have a higher power ceiling? That's the question. But again, that number one concern at the moment is the roster construction. Who do you move? Do you trade Ben Rice away to open up first base? Do you not re-sign Paul Goldschmidt? Do you trade McMahon away after just a half of year? Do you switch somebody around to shortstop? Do you play musical chairs in the infield? I don't know. But now Murakami is something that all the Yankee fans want and they absolutely need. But the Athletic also came out with an article saying there's nowhere to put Murakami. And I have to agree with that. There is no room for him to come over to the Yankees. If the Yankees want to get international talent, especially from Japan, my biggest move for them would be to get Tatsuya Imai, Japanese pitcher. He's, I believe, in his late 20s, just about to be 30. And he is a fantastic pitcher, would be a difference maker for any player, any team that gets him. So that might be the route that the Yankees want to go to. But for Murakami, if they want to go down that route, they're going to have to play some really, really big musical chairs with regards to the roster construction and line construction. So that's my rant. But we're still a long way away from any offseason dealing. So we'll see what transpires.
Yeah, with Murakami, I think the Dodgers are probably going to be the highest bidders once again. They've got that Japanese contingent or that nucleus that really just powers that team right now, right? And the New York Yankees don't have that nearly to the same extent. So that's a huge factor. So I can see them definitely being the highest bidders in that case. I've thought about that short porch, and I'm looking at the free agents, the potential free agents. And I would love to see Schwarber. I think it'd be amazing for the game if Schwarber had his turn with the New York Yankees. And I think they'll be aggressive in going after him. And you can just imagine what Schwarber would do with that short porch in right field. Now, you can make the claim, well, where do you put Schwarber? He could be a bit of a defensive liability.
That's what I was about to bring up. Yeah.
You know what? I thought about that. And these guys are major league players. And really, what is a defensive liability in left field? You make the routine plays. You hit the cutoff, man. He might not lay out and dive and make amazing catches. He might not lead the league in assists, but he'll do the job out there, right? I mean, look at the Dodgers outfield. Is it fantastic? No, not by any means, right? But they are absolutely, well, look where they are now, right? Just dominating. So I don't think a lot of emphasis needs to be placed in the potential liability that someone like Murakami, I don't know how he is in the outfield. Or did you say he might be playing third base? Jesse?
Yes. So Murakami would likely start at third base. He can absolutely switch over to first base. Most of his playing time has been at third base. He has gotten some reps in the Japanese league at first base, but that's really where it stems right now, is either corner of the infield, the left corner or the right corner. So that's really where they might want to put him.
One thing to consider is Max Muncy is also a free agent, right? So there's a vacancy at the hot corner with the Dodgers as well. So,
we know how they are with the Japanese-born players and coming over.
That evil empire is just going to swoop in, and I'm sure Toronto will even throw their hat in the ring in this particular case. There's going to be a lot of teams.
I was going to say, Red Sox could be one. Red Sox could be one too, especially with the news of Bregman, opting out and uncertainty there. They're another team. So,
yes,
yeah.
All right. Well.
Yeah, Doug, why don't you pick up your rant? Absolutely.
All right. Well, I've been nervous all day, as I've been talking about in the pre-show. There, I'm wearing my Believe shirt. Have you guys seen Ted Lasso? You seen Ted Lasso where they talk about Believe? They put that up in the locker room. Well, I'm wearing that Jay shirt right now. And my favorite scene in Ted Lasso is when that Rupert guy, the evil guy, challenges Ted to a game of darts, right? And he thinks that Ted can't really play darts very well. And lo and behold, he's a real sharpshooter with the darts, and he ends up beating Rupert, right? It's a great scene. Well, I'm going to draw like a slight parallel and think that, Mariners fans really think that they've got it made, right? They're starting to make claims that the Jays can't win at home. Well, that is absolute nonsense, because the Jays, if you just look at the records, were amazing at home all season long. And so were the Mariners. So in that regard, this season has been a total flip-flop and a total anomaly. So you really can't predict based on home field advantage, because that just hasn't played out, right, at any stage of the playoffs, really. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, the Mariners just have a bad vibe. I got a bad vibe with them right now. I don't think Wu intentionally hit Springer in the kneecap with a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, essentially taking him out of the game. I don't think that was on purpose. I had a couple of buddies text me saying, do you think that was intentional? And you look at Brian Wu, he seems like, a guy with integrity, doesn't seem like a nasty sort of dirty player. So I don't think so. No. But it was convenient in that particular moment that Springer was taken out of the game. Now, Toronto's got the depth. They had Joey Lopefito waiting on the bench. and he was more than happy to take Springer's place on the base paths. And like I said, we've got the depth to replace just about anybody. But George Springer is a phenomenal player, and if we were to lose him, then that's a clear advantage for the Mariners. And just the nature by which we would have lost him just sort of reeks, it's just dirty. So I'm kind of in the corner of the Blue Jays, number one, because I'm a lifelong Blue Jays fan. But number two, I just feel like the Blue Jays are the good guys right now, man. And I feel like the Mariners are sort of the bully in the schoolyard, and they just really need to be put in their place. That's kind of where I am. Another thing was my Max Scherzer article that I put out this week. And I don't get a lot of predictions correct. But when I do, I feel good about myself. And I share that with my colleagues. I shared with my fellow Dirty Leather ranters that I predicted that Max Scherzer would go at least 5 innings. I predicted that Bulldog playoff mentality that he had in the 2019 World Series would resurface. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. He came out of the gate a little bit slow, was having trouble finding the zone, but man, did he ever dial it in. And my favorite part of that game was when John Schneider came to the mound to talk to him and probably would have taken him out. Right? Probably would have taken him out of the game. But there's my man Scherzer, and what does he say? He said something to the effect of "screw you, Schneid's," or I don't know, something to that effect.
Yeah.
I'm not a great lip reader, but I know that he was very, very adamant that he was to stay in the game. And if you look at the expression on his face, you can see that Bulldog from 2019 that we've been waiting to see, the Blue Jays staff, the Blue Jays fans have been waiting to see all throughout 2025. It's there. The real Max Scherzer of old has returned. And even his velocity, there is no drop from now. If you do a comparison of the metrics, in terms of his fastball anyway, he's actually up around the 95, and he hit a few 96s. And that's a lot faster in terms of velo than he was throughout the course of the year. So fear not. Max Scherzer is a playoff performer, and he's the real deal. So great to have him. I hope he gets another chance to pitch. Obviously, it would be in the World Series, unless somehow they need to use him in a Game 7 scenario. Could very well happen. We'll see. Mm-hmm. And the last thing I wanted to address, I wanted to say something about the mistake that I made last week. I called Bryce Miller Bryce Elder. I made that mistake, right? And someone was quick to point that out. It had to be a Mariners fan who pointed that out and said effectively, this dude, doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't even know Miller's name. And he shut out the Blue Jays. Kudos to Miller. He threw an amazing game. He pitched very well the night before last. Once again, they can't seem to figure out Miller. I don't know why. Springer's about the only guy that's getting hits off him. The bottom of the order, Ernie Clement, I think, is hitting relatively well against him. But for the most part, Miller seems to have our number. So from now on, I promise I will not mess Miller's name. I will not confuse Bryce Miller with Bryce Elder. But I just wanted to address that it's an honest mistake. And the reason for that is they were both born around the same time. Elder was born in 99. Bryce Miller was born in 98. Bryce Elder was a 2020 draft pick out of the 5th round. Bryce Miller was a 2021 pick for the Mariners out of the 4th round. Bryce Elder's all-time career record so far is 24-24 with a 4.58 ERA. Bryce Miller is 24-21 with a 5.68, relatively close. Elder is from Decatur, I think sorry about the pronunciation if I messed that up. Texas, it's a heartland town in Texas. Miller is from Mount Pleasant, Texas, less than 2 hours away. They probably know each other. Bryce Elder was at the University of Texas where he starred. Bryce Miller was at Texas A&M where he starred. Now, the only thing there's a striking difference, and I wanted to point this out because I thought it was funny, and I think that I will remember this forever now, is that Bryce Miller has a mullet. Bryce Elder, no mullet. One more time. Bryce Miller, mullet. Bryce Elder, no mullet. You got that? I'm sorry I made the mistake, but as I alluded to, it was an honest one. So there's my rant.
Well, there you go. I appreciate you you addressing that. I'm sure the Mariners fans do as well. And I think what interested me about the hit by pitch situation, I'm not sure if the Mariners, I certainly don't think it was intentional by any stretch of the imagination. I really don't. And it just really unfortunate, that Springer got hurt on that play. I don't know if that makes me feel like the Mariners are dirty in any way, because as we both sort of admit, we don't think it's intentional. So I don't really think we can then call them dirty or evil for it happening. What I didn't like, though, was the Mariners fans celebrating it. That bothered me when they were clapping about him getting hit. That bothered me. So I will call out that. And I get it. Fans do that. It's not just Mariners fans. There's plenty of fans that have done it. But I never support celebrating somebody's injury, so I will call that behavior out. I don't think we should be doing that as any fan.
One thing we need to consider, though, Chris, is that there was a large Blue Jay supportive contingent in the stands at T-Mobile Park.
Yeah, and that's fair too.
Part of the applause was applauding Springer when he finally got up.
Yeah, so that's fair too. That's fair too.
That in. I'll give the Mariners fans the benefit of the doubt there.
Yeah.
And I'll give Brian Wu the benefit of the doubt. But in the heat of the moment, like you, I was turned off by the cheering. But then I thought about it for a moment, and I thought, well, I mean, that's probably Blue Jays fans in the crowd who are supporting Springer getting up and trying to stay in the game.
Yeah, that's reasonable. That's definitely reasonable. Okay, I'll jump into my rant really quickly. Actually, no, my rant's connected to the next topic. So why don't I just slide right into the next topic, which is, before we dig into the rest of the playoffs, I just wanted to do a quick roundup of some of the news and notes around the MLB, because there have been other things happening besides the playoffs, as much as we're all focused on the playoffs right now, which includes, obviously, the Giants lost their manager, then reportedly have potentially selected their new manager. That news came out this morning. Obviously San Diego, their manager retired. We have Bruce Bochy retired a while ago. But the news that sort of connects to my rant, and so the way I sort of was going to kick this section off, is Alex Bregman's opt-out, which we all already knew, I think, without officially knowing that Bregman was going to opt out. He kind of said it point blank towards the end of the season. And so my rant is sort of has to do with what the Red Sox plan is now. Because we know that in the free agent market recently, specifically, the Red Sox have not been willing to do what's necessary to get some of the bigger names. Granted, they have offered big contracts. Obviously, Crochet got extended with a big contract. They were willing to pull the trigger on a pretty massive trade on that. We have signed some other players a little bit, obviously, but the majority of them have been either extensions of players we already got, or trades and then extensions to those trades. It still hasn't always come through in free agency. And even Bregman himself, obviously, we got on essentially a discount. I mean, the yearly value is relatively high, but we got him because he was finally willing to take a short-term contract because he wasn't getting what he wanted. It wasn't because we went out and splurged. And I have concerns about what's going to happen this season if they don't. And another X factor out there too is that Story could also opt out. I'd be surprised if he did, because for the most part, he's an aging shortstop, but with the free agency pool not the strongest, and him coming off his best year in Boston, it's certainly something I think he's going to at least think about, especially with Bregman opting out. And so we have Marcelo Mayer, that could play one of those two positions if one of them doesn't come back. But if both of them don't come back, there really isn't much else out there, And so I hope the Red Sox, saw that they can make the playoffs this year, that they're right on the cusp. They almost took the Yankees out and probably realistically should have. They blew game 2 and sort of completely changed the dynamic there, but they could have won game 2, and then they would have been facing Toronto instead. So we're right on the cusp, and I would hate to see, quite frankly, the owners, because I don't think it's front office. I think it's the owners at this point, let an opportunity go to waste and not fortify some of the things we need to fortify. So I guess that's my rant. I'm concerned to see what goes on with Bregman. I know he wants to stay in Boston, but will we want him to stay, I guess? And so I hope he does, because I think outside of the offense that he obviously provides and the defense he obviously provides, the biggest factor for him all season long was his leadership. And especially with a young team like what the Red Sox have, having somebody that's a legitimate leader, which we didn't have when Devers was our quote leader, it makes a massive difference. And I would hate to see them ignore that and let him go when he's been such a major help for guys like Roman Anthony, guys like Mayer, guys like Christian Campbell, even some of the pitchers, they say he goes out of his way to hang out with them, goes out of his way to talk to them, goes out of his way to support them, and it would be a shame to lose that. So, when you think
of the elite players in this game, Alex Bregman is most certainly one of them, right? I mean, from the time when he was drafted out of LSU,
absolutely.
Even before that, in his high school days, he's always been a legend, right? Legendary type player.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can picture his batting stance. You can picture the way that he fields. Fundamentally, he's just so sound, and his game is just so crisp, right?
Yeah.
He's an elite baseball player. Now, it's unfortunate that you didn't get a full season of work out of him, right?
Yeah.
But like you said, the writing was sort of on the wall all season that he would probably opt out, and test the market. But I would say in terms of your priorities moving forward, he would be priority number 1.
I agree.
And Story, you can get by because you've got Mayer as the shortstop of the future.
Yep.
And you've got Anthony in the middle of that lineup.
Yeah.
To essentially complement a superstar like Bregman if he were to return.
I agree.
So that's the piece that I just think it's good for baseball for Bregman to be playing. For him just to be hitting, absolute seeds off the green monster and over the green monster.
I agree.
That's just great for the game. I don't want him, being shopped around and having, sign with somebody like an NL West team, and that just isn't at the direction that I'd like to see the game going.
I agree with that too. So really quickly to continue on this sort of topic, I figured each of you could give one other piece of news that especially stood out to you over the last week or two from MLB and just sort of what the implications might be in your mind, and then we'll move on to the playoffs after that. So Doug, do you have anything that stood out to you?
I can.
Oh yeah, Jesse, go ahead.
You go first, okay?
Yeah, sure. I can definitely chime in. So one piece of news that did come out recently, it's more I guess you could say a little bit more revealing than the others. Tariq Skubal and the Detroit Tigers at the end of this season, they are currently trying to work out an extension for him. They are about $250 million apart, according to a multitude of sources. At the end of 2024, the Tigers tried to offer a 4-year deal under $100 million. Skubal apparently wants at least $400 million, or around that ballpark of $400 million overall. And it could be, $45 million AAV or $50 million AAV, depending on how long the contract is. I don't think the Tigers are going to even be close to that, to be honest with you. And if they do, they're going to have to make some really, really interesting financial decisions. So the question now becomes, could teams now possibly look to trade for him by bringing a large trade package involving a lot of prospects, probably MLB players, so on and so forth? That's going to be very interesting, especially for the next year. And just before, the end of the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, which is going to happen. But that's a story for another day. So the question is, can Skubal possibly be traded sometime in 2026, possibly 2027 or 2028, depending on when, this new CBA is signed? Every single competitive team will absolutely be looking to make a trade if a contract is not done by the beginning of next season. They will absolutely try to pitch an offer to the Tigers front office. The question is, who's going to have the more lucrative offer? Could it be the Mets because they might be willing to give up possibly Jet Williams or Brandon Sproat, or somebody else, maybe Noah McLean, who is a very good pitcher at the late half of or in the late part of the season for the Mets. Maybe the Yankees try to take a swing by offering Spencer Jones or George Lombard Jr. on the table, and then constructing a deal around that, or constructing a trade package around that. Could he possibly be going to another small market team? Could he be possibly going to another competitor? We don't know, but essentially, just by looking at this gap between the Tigers and Skubal, he might be on his way out if they cannot come to an agreement. He might very well be traded before the end of next year's trade deadline. The question is, again, who is going to throw the most on the line, and who's going to invest most of their assets? At the same time, don't forget, he is going to be a free agent at the end of 2026 or at the end of 2027, one of the two, but he's going to be a free agent soon. So you really have to consider the fact that you're going to have to spend a lot of money to keep him around, especially if you want to be a championship team going forward. So it's going to be really interesting. But maybe the Tigers get a deal done. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But it's going to have to be loaded at this point with incentives, opt-outs, so on and so forth. But this is going to be a really interesting saga over the next year.
Well, and it's interesting because I've thought a lot about Skubal as a Red Sox fan, and I think on paper, the Red Sox could certainly make that deal and not only just offer some major league level offensive players, which I think the Tigers would love to have a little bit more depth there, but also could match the left-handed pitching right there, with somebody like a Peyton Toll or someone, could sort of replace Skubal, not, immediately, but could be that type of thing that the Tigers could look at to sort of bring in, because I don't think the Red Sox would want 4 left-handed pitchers in their rotation necessarily, and they pulled the trigger on Crochet, but I think the big difference there, and the big X factor, is how much it's going to cost to extend him. And as I just talked about with the Red Sox, I don't know if they're going to be willing to throw that much money, and that would be potentially, because I think if they make that move, I think anybody that makes that move pretty much has to extend him. If you're going to pull the trigger on a move that's going to cost as many assets as Skubal will, you have to also be fully willing to meet him wherever he wants to be. You can't trade for him and then let him leave a year later. There just is no excusing that. So I don't know if the Red Sox would be willing to do that, but I think on paper they could match up very well. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, right now Skubal's value is at an all-time high. So we'll see how he does out of the gate next year. Anything can happen, right? And they've also got Jackson Jobe, the Tigers do, coming back next year, and he has ace potential as well. So the Tigers have a history of sort of grooming superstar pitchers, right? And Jackson Jobe could be the next one lying in wait, right? We'll see how they do next year with that 1-2 punch with Jobe coming back from Tommy John surgery. So the front end of the rotation next year for the Tigers is already stronger, right? And we'll see. So talk about players being at, their value being at the very top right now. There are some superstar players who will be entering the free agent market at a bit of a discount rate, I think. Bregman being one. I don't think Bregman's going to get nearly what he would get had he played a full year with the stats that he's, fully capable of. That's why I was a little bit surprised that he took the opt-out, a little bit. So one being Kyle Tucker, right? Kyle Tucker did not have a good year with the Cubs. I mean, he had an okay year, but it wasn't great. And apparently he was nursing or playing with a jammed finger, like a fractured finger for most of the year, just kind of a stress fracture. But it was enough to kind of diminish his power numbers throughout the course of the year. And it will also be enough to sort of dictate where his asking price goes in the free agent market. Because at the beginning of the year, when you looked ahead to, the 25, 26 free agent class, and you saw the name Kyle Tucker, you thought, oh, man, he's just absolutely going to blow the bank, right? Whoever gets him is going to have to toss around, numbers $500, $600 million. But now I don't even think he's going to get close to that. There will be a bidding war for him, but it might be a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
because of how he played, his performance, his numbers last year. And I think the Blue Jays are going to be heavily in that market, because Bichette, it's looking like Bichette might walk, or that he will walk in free agency. I don't know who's going to go after him, but I don't think the Jays are going to meet his asking price, in which case Jimenez will move over to shortstop. And that's been a great move in the playoffs, really, right? I mean, the defense is super, super solid. And the Blue Jays have built their strengths from, fundamental defense and base running and so forth, and depth. And I don't think that Bichette really fits into their future plans in that regard. Tucker, however, would be a mainstay in the outfield. He could play right field, and they have Varsho in center. And then they've got an assortment of players to choose from in left field. And then you've got, hopefully, Santander returning to form as a DH. So I guess that's my news piece, would be that Tucker is entering the market at a bit of a discounted rate from what he would have been at the start of the year. I wanted to mention one more thing. Shane Bieber, I would love if the Jays could somehow lock him up long term, because it looks like the injury concerns are a thing of the past. And I love it when these guys come back stronger from Tommy John surgery. It's just great. It's awesome to see. Like DeGrom has done it, a couple of times now, right? And I'm hoping for your case, Jesse, that Garrett Cole returns to form next year after Tommy John. I think he will. I think he will. Right?
Yeah.
Same with Jackson Jobe.
It's become so regular now. I mean, another one, Giavaldi bounced back from it twice too. So
Bieber's going to take, if he takes the opt out, then the Jays, I guess, pay him $4 million, and he walks. And then I think if he chooses to stay, it would be for 1 year at $16 million. And that's, a team in the free agent market is going to offer him more than that. Shane Bieber, don't you think?
I would think so.
To say. So it's pretty well fair to say that Bieber's going to take that opt out, and I think the Jays really need to be aggressive in trying to get him back somehow.
I agree, and I quite frankly, I hope the Red Sox throw their hat in the ring, because I think they could use somebody like him in that rotation. I think the number one priority for them is Bregman. I think the number two is another frontline starter. So it'll be interesting to see. I also think, to Jesse's point a little bit, and I know this is the whole discussion probably for the offseason, but it will be very interesting to see how that the collective bargaining agreement, CBA, plays out, and how that affects free agency this year, and how whether teams are going to go all in because of the uncertainty of the CBA for next season, or whether they're very tentative because of the uncertainty of the CBA. It'll be interesting to see if and what effect that has this offseason. All right, I think we should jump into the playoffs at this point. And typically I would start with the AL, but I think because the NL is already done, I think it's a quicker wrap up at this point. There's less talking points to sort of discuss. So let's just really quickly hit on the NL. Obviously, the Dodgers have won. They swept away the Brewers. So I guess the two big questions are, what happened to the Brewers? They were the best team in the league, had the best record, obviously in a, not necessarily head to head with the Dodgers all season long, but they had the best record. What happened to them? And then number two, can anybody beat this Dodgers team at this point? Are they just too good? Are they too loaded, especially on the pitching staff? So I guess also, go ahead.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview with Steve Sachs yesterday on the MLB Network, and he alluded to the fact that what a juxtaposition this Dodgers team is finding themselves in this year as opposed to last season, right? Because last season at this time, they had Yamamoto at the front end, and then they had Flaherty as their second starter, and then they were having bullpen starts after that, and they were really relying on an elite bullpen to carry them through. And now this year, it's the total opposite. You've got four elite front end starters in Yamamoto, Snell, Ohtani, and Glasnow, right? So those are four starters who would be number one starters on any other team other than probably the Yankees with Fried. and the Red Sox with Garrett Crochet, and the Tigers, and maybe the Pirates, right? Those are the only teams where I can't think of all four of those guys stepping in as the number one guy on the rotation. So, that's hard to handle. That really is. And when you got Ohtani putting up a historic performance, hitting balls completely out of the stadium, it's just, how do you beat that? I mean, how do you even get one game from a team that has absolutely no holes? Even if there's supposed to be holes in the bullpen, but every guy seems to come in situations that aren't very high leverage, and they just shut the team down. And then they've got their closer, Sasaki, who's also throwing triple digits and hitting the spots and doing whatever he wants out there.
Yeah.
So it's really tough. I don't know. What do you think, Jake?
Well, it's interesting, too, just to really quickly chime in there as far as the juxtaposition from last year to this year, is I think one of the knocks on the Dodgers for a long time was that they were a regular season team, or that they weren't set up as well for the postseason. It could be exploited in the postseason. And I'd almost argue this year is the exact opposite. They're more set up for the postseason because of the fact that they have that shorter rotation where they can just throw every ace at you and then toss Sasaki out there in the bullpen, and not have to worry about it in a shorter series, So I think in a way they've almost flipped that sort of, they didn't have the best record in the majors this year, and yet how do you beat that rotation, So I do think it's interesting. They almost have totally.
Yeah, it looks like we lost Khris there for a second, but I mean, it's not only their rotation, right? I mean, the team did sort of solidify some concerns or alleviate some concerns as the season went on. Like Muncy returned as the everyday third baseman. And, even like their batting order at the end of the order, like you got Andy Pages, who had a career year in his young career. He had 27 home runs, 86 RBI, and that's your number 9 hitter, And then you got Kike Rodriguez, like you talked about last week, who just seems to, go into a phone booth and put on this Superman suit, and it is just this totally different player in the postseason. And, every guy is playing a role, but they're also, taking it to a whole different level. Everybody in the lineup is just taking it to the next level. So it's pretty awesome to see, but at the same time, it's hard to imagine anyone really, offering any opposition to that at all.
Yeah, let me just chime in on the National League Championship Series here. It all came down to pitching from the Dodgers, essentially. That rotation is phenomenal. That rotation is extremely dangerous, especially with Yoshinobu Yamamoto pitching a complete game, almost a complete game shutout, and Blake Snell going 8 innings of one hit ball. This team is fantastic, especially their rotation when they are healthy. And let's also give props to the fact, and let's also give note to the fact, that the Milwaukee Brewers band couldn't do anything. 118 batting average, a 384 OPS. Their entire OBP was .191, which is exceptionally low. Their best hitter was Caleb Durbin, and he basically had 2 doubles and a triple, not even a home run. There was 1 home run by this team the entire series from the Brewers side. 14 hits across 4 games. That's not good enough for the Brewers. That will not get you anywhere.
No.
I mean, this team got absolutely shut down by all metrics. And we're talking about 41 strikeouts. It's almost a 40% strikeout rate against the Brewers with regards to at bats. They did have 11 walks, so they did have men on base, but they were not able to score. They were either A, left on base, or B, they were not able to get anything going. So this was a phenomenal masterclass by Dodgers pitching. Now, with regards to whether or not the Dodgers can be stopped, it's going to hinge on 2 things. Number one, in the World Series, regardless if that's Seattle or Toronto, you have to shut Shohei Ohtani down on both sides of the ball. Doesn't matter if he's pitching, doesn't matter if he's hitting. You have to stop him from having a 3 home run game, essentially, and to stop him from getting on base. basically keep him quiet at the plate. And when he is pitching, you have to get to him early. You have to start tacking on runs. You have to start tacking on base runners. You have to start working the count a little bit more. Be a little smarter when you're in the batter's box. So you have to really just shut him down. There's no question. That whole team essentially, to an extent, revolves around Shohei Ohtani. If you can't shut him down, you're not going to shut the Dodgers down. The number two, you have to get to the pitching on all fronts. It's not just Shohei Ohtani. It's also Blake Snell. It's also Yamamoto. It's also Glass now. It's also Sasaki, who's now essentially the de facto closer for this team because Tanner Scott has had so many issues. It's also Anthony Banda as well. Blake Trinian, if he does pitch well. This is a really, really loaded bullpen and staff that you could just throw out on a whim. You have to really, really knock around the bullpen and knock around the starting rotation, especially when you're in the World Series. If you can't get to the rotation, if you can't get to the bullpen, the Dodgers are going to have a repeat on their hands. And going into 2026, they're going to feel really good about a three-peat. So really, can they be stopped? It's going to have to come up to whether or not, whether it be Toronto, whether their overall offense can really hit the Dodgers pitching, or if it's the Mariners, how many long balls can you hit in a single series to overcome the fact that this team is a strikeout machine, that the Dodgers are strikeout pitchers. They are really, really good with getting strikeouts. So it's going to be a really, really good question. I don't know if they can be stopped. It really is going to come down to the offense.
For sure. And what's interesting, too, about the fact that they were able to shut down the Milwaukee Brewers is the fact that the Milwaukee's strength is getting on base and sort of being contact hitter, fundamental baseball. It wasn't necessarily being home run hitters. It's about making contact and keeping the chains moving, and that's how they sort of scored a lot of what they did, and so that really worked against them, I think, in this series. And I think, well, we'll get into it with the AL, but I do think that if there's a team that could do it, I think Seattle's more matched up for it, and I'll explain why as we get into that. But we don't even know if they're getting there yet because there's still a game tonight and potentially Game 7 as well. So let's dig in to the American League Series. I know Doug has a special interest in this one for sure, and it's been quite a series. So I guess, the couple questions here are, what are we looking at for Game 6? Do we think Seattle can lock it up tonight, or is Toronto going to force a Game 7? And then the other real interesting thing, and Doug alluded to it a little bit actually earlier, even before the show started, about, sort of the home field situation and how neither team has done that well at home, which is in a reversal a bit of both of their seasons, and really in the playoffs as a whole, although I'd say the Dodgers are sort of a one everywhere, but otherwise, home field advantage hasn't been a home field advantage, so do we think that pattern continues, tonight for Toronto, or does that turn around, or why hasn't there been a home field advantage in the playoffs this year and in this series particularly? So I guess those are some of the talking points about the American League Series. I don't know if either you want to jump in first, but...
Well, I think there will be some element of home field advantage finally in this series tonight. And there was a little glimpse of it, one little outlier to the strange anomaly that we've sort of seen in terms of lack of home field advantage. Chris Bassett for the Blue Jays has been phenomenal at home with his starts. And he has been the polar opposite away from Rogers Center. Now, he followed suit with that trend in that 10-3 loss of Game 2. He came out for an inning and 2/3, I think it was, and was brilliant. He pitched amazingly well. He was the only highlight for the Blue Jays effectively throughout that entire game. So tonight, we're starting Trey Savage, and you've seen what Trey Savage is capable of. But he's going to be on a short leash. And if he shows any signs of vulnerability early in this game, in Game 6, well, I mean, I'm not going to, I can't read John Schneider's mind, but if I were the manager, or if anyone were the manager, I would think the immediate response would be to put Chris Bassett in and to have him ready to go in the second inning, in the first inning, if he needs to. So that should be the plan. And if that is the plan, then I think the Blue Jays are going to be just fine because they do hit Logan Gilbert fairly well. They've hit him well. George Kirby fairly well.
Yeah.
So I think statistically wise,
Yes.
they're in a pretty good situation being at home, facing the pitchers that they're going to face. So now, one thing that I'll really be looking for in terms of Trey Savage is he was rattled in that last start right out of the gate when he should have struck out Randy Arozarena on a strike three. It was a fastball that hit the bottom of the zone, clearly in the zone. Arozarena was walking back to the dugout as if he were struck out. It wasn't called a strike, right? And Trey Savage sort of put his head down. He walked around the mound. He ended up hitting Arozarena after that, right? Or did he hit Arozarena or did he hit? Yeah, he hit Arozarena. And then later in the inning, he gave up a 2-run homer to Julio Rodriguez. And then finally he regrouped and struck out the side. So it was like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing. And then he finally locked in and he was fine. So he's got to come out of the gate locked in, because when he's locked in, we all know what Savage is capable of doing. But that was a little concerning to me because we know that the umpiring, especially behind home plate, I'm sorry, it's been terrible. It's been horrendous, right? It just has been all playoffs, like every series. Like, I don't know. I'm really looking forward to this automated balls and strike system being phased in, because we can't have this anymore where we're sitting at home. The coaches are in the dugout. They see that the pitch is clearly a strike. And the only one in the world that sees it otherwise is the home plate umpire. So that home plate umpire in that game, Tom Evans, I think it was, he missed something like 24 calls behind the dish. So, when the margin of victory.
I'll chime in with regards to that, or just regards with the American League Championship Series as well. This has been an offensive battle. It's not just, that Trey Savage has struggled. It's not that Kevin Gausman or that the Toronto offense struggled at home for the first 2 games. This has been a real offensive showcase from both teams. We're talking about 19 home runs across 5 games, essentially across the American League Championship Series. That actually beats 2020's record when the Houston Astros played against the Tampa Bay Rays, and there were 16 home runs. So we're witnessing a little bit of some baseball history. This is a real high-powered offensive showcase. I mean, we're talking about Daniel Suarez, who has had 2 home runs, Cal Raleigh, who has continued to hit home runs, 3 home runs. We're talking about Julio Rodriguez, who has shown up for the postseason, 2 home runs, 4 walks, 5 RBIs as well. We're also talking about Josh Naylor, who, there might have been a little bit of some questions on whether or not he could, reperform in the postseason. He's also shown up as well. On the Blue Jays side, you have a lot of other good players as well. It's a shame, unfortunately, that George Springer got hit with that fastball. That might, rattle him a little bit. Hopefully, he can play through the rest of the series and provide a large boost to this offense.
He's in the lineup.
Okay, so great. That's wonderful, because don't forget, he has a .318 batting average. He has a 1.102 OPS. So his on-base percentage is .375. So he gets on base, he can hit home runs, and he can absolutely run the bases really well. So if he were taken out of the lineup, which thankfully he's not for Toronto, that would have been a big question mark. And don't forget, Toronto also has 8 home runs of their own. 2 of them, or 6 of them, coming from Guerrero Jr., Springer, and even Andre Jimenez, who I didn't think was going to be a real factor into this series, because his season has been awful, especially at the plate. I believe his OPS was under 600, and I think it was just creeping under 550 for the entire season. So there were real questions on whether or not he was going to be able to even compete in the lineup. He has shown up in a tremendous way. And that's actually one of my X factors for Game 6 and Game 7. Can Andres Jimenez continue performing the way he has throughout the American League Championship Series? Is he able to get something off of Logan Gilbert, not once but twice, depending on how long he goes? Can he continue his dominance against the Seattle Mariner bullpen? Because again, both bullpens and starting rotations have floundered. Unfortunately, the Mariners pitching which I raved about a week or two ago, hasn't really shown up. George Kirby got rattled. Luis Castillo got rattled. Bryce Miller has done a phenomenal job. He has a 1.8 ERA with 7 strikeouts over 10 innings pitched. He has 5 walks, so he has an issue with control a little bit, or he had issue with control a little bit, but he still gave you some quality outings. Now with Logan Gilbert, in the last game, he did not pitch well. He only went 3 innings and gave up 3 runs and 5 hits, and only had 2 strikeouts and a walk. So the question is, now that he's on the road, essentially again, in a very rowdy environment, which is Toronto, can he perform in a Game 6 situation where the home crowd for the Toronto Blue Jays are roaring in your ear? Can he handle the pressure? That's going to be the big question tonight. And if Seattle is able to get its offense going early, can Josh Naylor continue his dominance? That's also my other X factor for Seattle. Mm-hmm. Josh Naylor can provoke a spark or can provide a spark to the offense. So that is good. Mm-hmm. Those are my 2 X factors. Jimenez for the Blue Jays, Naylor for Seattle. So, but this is going to be an offensive battle until the end. 100%.
I think it'll be a slugfest. I agree. Mm-hmm. Now, you have to admire or at least acknowledge the performance of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. throughout this entire playoff run. It has been phenomenal. I mean, in my opinion, he's the second best player in the world right now. Shohei Ohtani being the first, mm-hmm. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. being the second best baseball player who is mm-hmm. active right now. He's just been absolutely phenomenal. Mm-hmm. He is dialed mm-hmm. in, and I'm so happy that we've locked him up long term. Yeah. Because his ceiling is so high, and I really believe he's just getting started. I mean, he's 26, right? Mm-hmm. And so he's heading into his prime years, and I think we're really going to see what he's capable of, which is enormous things. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts putting up the type of numbers that we see from Judge, mm-hmm. we used to see from Trout. Those types of numbers, I think, are going to be coming around by Vladimir Guerrero starting next year or the year after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to chime in about the series a little bit on this end too, I mean, I think Vladdy, it's been awesome to see him do well. I love the kid. I've always loved him. He's one of my favorite players, so I'm glad to see him, stepping up in the playoffs and having that opportunity. I don't know why both teams have lost so many games at home. But in my mind, I don't think that changes. Tonight, I think Seattle is going to actually win this game. And the reason I feel that way is less about the starting pitching, because I agree. I don't think either starting – well, I don't know if I agree. I mean, I'm sure Doug would love to see a Savage go deep. But in my opinion, I don't think either starter is going to do that great tonight. And I think the difference is going to come down to those bullpens. And I think – in my opinion, I believe that the Seattle Mariners bullpen is going to hold Toronto better than Toronto's bullpen holds Seattle. And I think that's going to be the X factor, the difference. I think it's going to be a matchup of the bullpens. And I think even though you have Bassett out there waiting in the wings, I just think the Mariners bullpen overall is going to do better. And that's why I think they're going to win. And that is part of the logic for why I think they match up better against the Dodgers. I think it's a 2-part thing. Jesse mentioned a bit the Mariners home run propensity, and that's sort of where they get a lot of their offense from. Even more so than Toronto, who can obviously hit home runs as well. There's no question. But I think Toronto does a lot with, contact as well. And I actually think that plays against you against the Dodgers. I think that the way to beat the Dodgers pitchers is the long ball. And the reason for that is because I don't think they, like Jesse said, they strike out so many batters. They're strikeout pitchers. And I don't think you're able to string a bunch of hits together to score in bunches that easily against them. So I think in a way you have to rely on the long ball to score. And I think the Mariners, because they've relied on it pretty much all year, I actually think that plays to their strength, and I think their rotation, although we haven't seen it necessarily in this series, I think their rotation, especially if Wu ends up back in the rotation in the World Series, might match up a little bit better against the Dodgers rotation 1 through 4, not necessarily the top, but the total depth, I think matches up a little bit better as well. And I think their bullpen is a little bit better than Toronto's is. So that's why I feel like if either team can match up the best against the Dodgers, I think it's the Mariners. All that being said, I think the Dodgers are destined to repeat. I don't know if either team's ultimately going to be able to beat them. But yeah, so I guess that's sort of what I'm thinking. I guess really quickly, to finish up, we got about 5 minutes left. I guess I'll just say, what's your pick for the rest of the series? Who do you think wins tonight? Who do you think wins the series? And then who do you think ultimately wins or wins the World Series? Or do you think, do you automatically think it's going to be the Dodgers? So I guess that's how we'll finish it up, if either you want to sort of kick off those last thoughts there.
Yeah, I got to believe that the Blue Jays are going to win tonight. I think that I agree with you, Chris. Like the Mariners bullpen is stronger overall than the Blue Jays bullpen. But at this stage in a series, these hitters have had so many looks against all these pitchers that I don't know that there's a true advantage one side against the other, right? It's just about taking quality at bats, not striking out. And the Mariners strike out more than the Blue Jays do, right? So I think they're going to take it tonight. They're going to take Game 6, and then Shane Bieber's got the ball for a Game 7 scenario where there'll be all hands on deck, right? I mean, everyone will be available to pitch. That being said, whoever comes out after a Game 7, I hope it's my Blue Jays, but I'm just going to go tonight. Tonight, one game at a time. I'm going to pick the Blue Jays to win tonight, and it's going to go to Game 7. And I don't want to really predict Game 7 at this point, but whoever comes out of the AL is just going to run into a brick wall with the Dodgers. They might get one win, but yes. I mean that might be the extent of it. That's my prediction.
Yeah, just chiming in on the back end of that. This is a classic case, especially with the World Series. An unstoppable force, which is either the Toronto Blue Jays or the Seattle Mariners offense against the immovable object, which is the Dodgers pitching. Now, for the ALCS, for the rest of it, I still believe that the Blue Jays will have it in 7 games. I still believe at some point the Mariners are going to slump, because the faster the rise is, the harder the fall is going to be. And if it happens in Game 6 and it continues into Game 7, that's going to be a problem, especially if you're looking to close out the series. You're on the road at Toronto. You're going up against what has been a relatively good rookie pitcher. And then probably if Game 7, if you get that far, if it goes to that point, you're going to have to go against the former Cy Young winner, Shane Bieber. And that's going to be really difficult if your team slumps at the same time. But again, if the team remains hot, then it will likely be the Mariners. Now, getting to the World Series, again, immovable object is the Dodgers pitching. That pitching rotation is really good when it is healthy and when it is all coming together. It is all synced up. We saw it with the National League Championship Series. They are really good. They can strike out batters when their lineups are it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a good lineup or a bad lineup. They can strike out guys when they want to. They have a good closer now on the rise in Roki Sasaki, who may very well, if he continues like this and performs well in the World Series, could possibly take the closer job if the Dodgers want to go that way from Tanner Scott, who has been tremendously struggling. But aside from that, just on the basis of the World Series, I still believe at this moment, whoever goes up against the Dodgers will have to face a very good rotation. Game 1, Game 2, Game 3, and Game 4, Game 5, Game 6, and even Game 7, if it gets that far. But again, if the Mariners go to the World Series, I think the Dodgers might sweep that, maybe give up a game. So it will either be 4-0 or 4-1. Because again, the Mariners have a large propensity to strike out. If they can't get anything off of the starting rotation, off the bullpen, and they strike out an incredible amount of times, they will not win. Now, for the Blue Jays, and this is why I actually agree with Chris, I think the Blue Jays are a little bit more of a well-rounded team because they play a little bit more small ball and long ball and have a nice balanced offense. They may be able to haul that World Series a little longer, maybe win 2 games, perhaps take it to Game 7. So we'll see what happens. But I still believe that the Dodgers will win the World Series this year. It's really hard to picture it not happening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you. And sorry, I've been having weird technical issues. The perils of of trying to do this show for my car. I guess I apologize. It keeps randomly booting me out. Yeah, so I'll just finish up here. I agree with everything that you said, Jesse. But the reason I think that Toronto being more well-rounded is actually maybe potentially a weakness is I think the Brewers were exactly that. The Brewers were incredibly well-rounded as an offense, and we saw them get completely shut down because ultimately they couldn't string enough hits together, to do anything against that rotation, which is why I think being able to score every once in a while by crushing a pitch 450 feet might be the only way you can score against them. So that's my argument there. I think the Mariners win tonight. I think they lose to the Dodgers in 5. That's my prediction overall, and I think the Dodgers are repeat champions and set up to win again next year. But I think that's the end of the show. Good luck, Doug, tonight for your Blue Jays. We'll see what happens in potentially Game 7 if we get that far, and then we'll have lots more to talk about next week as we'll be we'll be heading, with some things to talk about with the World Series and then the off season. So I hope you guys take care this week and you enjoy either watching, the ALCS or watching the World Series or mourning your loss or whatever may end up happening as a result of the results the next couple games. But take care, guys. Good luck and enjoy baseball.
Bye, guys.
Take care.